Emma walked slowly up the narrow wooden stairs to her grandmother's attic. Each step creaked under her feet, making soft sounds in the quiet house. The air smelled like old books and lavender sachets. Dust particles floated in the afternoon. Sunlight that streamed through the small window at the far end of the room. Her mother was already upstairs, sitting on the floor next to several old cardboard boxes. She looked tired and sad. Margaret, Emma's grandmother, had died peacefully in her sleep just 1 month ago. Now, they had the difficult job of going through all her belongings and deciding what to keep and what to give away. Emma had loved her grandmother very much. Margaret had always been kind and patient with her. When Emma was a little girl, she would spend every Saturday afternoon at her grandmother's cottage. They would bake cookies together, and Margaret would tell her stories about the old days. Margaret had taught Emma how to knit and how to make jam from the berries that grew in her garden. "I do not know how we will get through all of this," Emma's mother said quietly, looking round at the boxes and furniture that filled the attic. Mother kept everything, every letter, every photograph, every piece of clothing. She said everything had a story and a purpose. Emma nodded and began opening the boxes near the window. The first box was full of old Christmas decorations. There were glass ornaments that Margaret had collected over many years, and handmade decorations that Emma had made as a child. Seeing her childhood artwork made Emma smile, even though she felt sad. The second box contained photograph albums. Emma opened one and saw pictures of her grandparents when they were young. Margaret looked so beautiful in her wedding dress. Her grandfather looked handsome in his military uniform. There were pictures of Emma's mother as a baby, and later pictures of Emma herself learning to walk in Margaret's garden. "Emma, come look at this," her mother called softly from the corner where an old cedar chest sat beneath the window. Her voice sounded strange, like she had discovered something very important. Emma put down the photo album and walked over to where her mother was kneeling. The cedar chest was made of beautiful dark wood and had brass handles that had turned green with age. Emma remembered seeing this chest many times when she was young, but her grandmother had never opened it in front of her. Her mother lifted the heavy lid of the chest. Inside, Emma could see several items wrapped carefully in what looked like lavender tissue paper. The smell of lavender was much stronger now, and Emma realized that her grandmother had put lavender sachets in the chest to keep everything fresh and protected. Her mother reached for the largest wrapped item and carefully lifted it out of the chest. As she began to unwrap the tissue paper, Emma held her breath. What could be so special that her grandmother had wrapped it so carefully and kept it hidden away for so long? When the tissue paper fell away, Emma gasped. Inside was the most beautiful quilt she had ever seen in her entire life. The colors were stunning. Deep blues mixed with warm golden yellows and soft cream colors. The pattern was made of stars that seemed to connect with each other in a complex design. As the afternoon light from the window hit the quilt, the colors seemed to shimmer and dance. "Oh my goodness," Emma whispered, reaching out to touch the soft fabric. The quilt felt smooth and carefully made. Every stitch was perfect and even. Emma could tell that someone had spent many hours creating this beautiful work of art. "I remember this quilt," her mother said, and Emma could see tears starting to flow down her face. "I had forgotten all about it." Mother started working on this the day she found out she was going to have a grandchild. That was 25 years ago. Just before you were born. Emma's mother continued talking, but her voice was shaky with emotion. Every evening after dinner, Mother would sit in her rocking chair by the window. She would work on this quilt for hours. Her fingers would get sore from all the stitching, but she never complained. She said she was putting love into every single stitch, Emma looked more closely at the quilt and noticed something attached to one corner. It was a small envelope that looked old and yellowed with age. The paper looked fragile, like it might fall apart if someone handled it roughly. In her grandmother's careful handwriting, the envelope was labeled, "For Emma, when you truly need this most." Emma's hands began to tremble as she read these words. How could her grandmother have known that Emma would need something special right now? How could she have known that Emma would be going through such a difficult time in her life? Her mother noticed Emma's reaction and spoke gently. She always said that you would know when the right time came to open that letter. Mother had a way of understanding things that the rest of us could not see. She always seemed to know exactly what people needed, even before they knew it themselves. Emma thought about her current situation. Just 1 week ago, she had lost her job at the design studio where she had worked for 3 years. Her boss had called all the employees into a meeting and announced that the company was closing down. Everyone would lose their jobs by the end of the month. Since then, Emma had felt completely lost and uncertain about her future. She had no idea what kind of work she wanted to do next. She felt scared about paying her rent and buying food every night. She lay in bed worrying about what would happen to her. But now, holding this beautiful quilt that her grandmother had made especially for her, Emma felt something she had not felt in many weeks. She felt hope. She felt like maybe everything would be okay after all. Maybe her grandmother's love and wisdom could help her find her way through this difficult time. The quilt seemed to wrap Emma in warmth and comfort, even though she was not actually wearing it. Just knowing that her grandmother had spent so many evenings thinking about her and creating something so special made Emma feel less alone. Emma drove home slowly from her grandmother's cottage that evening. The quilt sat carefully folded on the passenger seat next to her, along with the mysterious letter that had waited 25 years to be opened. Every few minutes, Emma would glance over at the quilt and still feel amazed that something so beautiful had been made especially for her. When she arrived at her small flat, Emma carried the quilt inside with great care. She lived in a tiny apartment on the second floor of an old building. The rooms were small but cozy, with large windows that let in plenty of natural light during the day. Emma had decorated the flat with plants and artwork that made it feel like home. Emma spread the quilt carefully across her bed. Under the light from her bedroom lamp, the colors looked even more beautiful than they had in the attic. The deep blues reminded her of the ocean on a calm day. The golden yellows were warm like sunshine. The cream colors were soft and peaceful. Emma sat on the edge of her bed and picked up the envelope with her name written on it. Her heart was beating fast with excitement and nervousness. What had her grandmother wanted to tell her? What wisdom had she saved for this moment? The envelope was sealed with old tape that had turned brown with age. Emma opened it very carefully, trying not to tear the fragile paper inside. When she unfolded the letter, she could smell a faint scent of lavender, just like the tissue paper that had wrapped the quilt. The letter was written in her grandmother's neat handwriting. Margaret had always been proud of her beautiful penmanship. She had learned to write with a fountain pen when she was young, and her letters always looked elegant and graceful. "My dearest Emma." The letter began. Emma could almost hear her grandmother's gentle voice saying the words, "I am writing this letter while you are still a tiny baby, sleeping peacefully in your mother's arms. I may never get to see the woman you become, but I know in my heart that you will be extraordinary." Emma paused reading for a moment. Her grandmother had been right. She had died when Emma was 24 years old. But somehow, through this letter, it felt like Margaret was still there with her, offering guidance and support. The letter continued, "Life will bring you challenges, my dear one. There will be times when you feel confused and scared. There will be moments when you feel like broken pieces scattered on the floor. with no idea how to put yourself back together again. Emma felt tears starting to form in her eyes. These words described exactly how she had been feeling since losing her job. She felt broken and scattered, with no clear direction for her future. But remember this, the letter went on. The most beautiful quilts are made from scraps that others might throw away. Pieces of fabric that seem worthless on their own can become something wonderful when they are brought together with love and patience. Emma looked up from the letter and studied the quilt spread across her bed. Now she began to notice things she had not seen before. Each star in the pattern was made from different pieces of fabric. Some pieces were large and some were small, but they all worked together to create the beautiful design. Emma looked closer at the fabrics and began to recognize some of them. One piece of blue denim looked familiar. Could that be from her grandfather's old work shirt? She remembered him wearing blue work shirts when he worked in his garden, and there, in the center of one star, was a piece of ivory silk that looked very much like fabric from a wedding dress. Emma returned to reading the letter, eager to understand more about these fabrics. I have sewn pieces of our family's story into this quilt. Margaret had written, each fabric holds memories of strength, of people who faced hard times and found ways to keep going. Your great-grandfather's work clothes are here, representing his dedication and hard work. Your great-grandmother's wedding dress is here, showing the love that built our family. Emma ran her fingers gently over the different pieces of fabric. Each piece felt different under her touch. Some were smooth like silk, others were rough like denim, and some were soft like cotton. But they all fit together perfectly in the quilts. Design. The letter continued. There are pieces from flour sacks that your great-great-grandmother used to make clothes during hard times. There are scraps from baby clothes that held and protected the children in our family. Each piece tells a story of survival, creativity, and hope. Emma began to understand what her grandmother was trying to tell her. These pieces of fabric were like the challenges and experiences in life. Some experiences were beautiful, like wedding days. Others were difficult, like hard work or poverty. But all of them together created the story of a family that had survived and grown stronger through many generations. When you wrap yourself in this quilt, the letter concluded, you wrap yourself in their courage too. You carry the strength of all the people who came before you. Remember that you are never alone, and you are capable of more than you know. Emma set the letter down on her bedside table and picked up a corner of the quilt. She wrapped it round her shoulders and immediately felt comforted. The fabric was soft and warm, but more than that, it felt like a hug from her grandmother and all the family members she had never met. For the first time since losing her job, Emma did not feel scared about the future. She realized that losing her job was not the end of her story. It was just the beginning of a new chapter, like the pieces of fabric in the quilt. This difficult experience could become part of something beautiful if she approached it with patience and hope. Emma looked at her reflection in the mirror across the room. She saw a young woman wrapped in a beautiful quilt made by loving hands. She saw someone who came from a long line of strong, creative people who had faced challenges and overcome them. For the first time in weeks, Emma felt ready to face whatever tomorrow might bring. Over the following days, Emma found herself thinking about the quilt constantly. She could not focus on job hunting or anything else. The letter from her grandmother kept running through her mind. What did those different fabrics really mean? She needed to know more. Emma picked up her phone and called her Aunt Rose. Rose was Margaret's younger sister and always loved telling family stories. When Emma explained about finding the quilt, Rose gasped with joy. "Oh, my dear, I remember when Mother made that quilt. She worked on it every single night after dinner. Her fingers would be so sore, but she never complained. She said she was sewing love into every stitch. Emma asked about the blue denim fabric she had noticed. Rose's voice became soft and proud as she began to tell the story. That came from your great-grandfather William's work clothes. He was such a strong man, Emma. He came to this country when he was just 18 years old. He had nothing but the clothes on his back and 5 pounds in his pocket. Can you imagine being that brave? Rose continued the story. William worked construction jobs from dawn until dark. He built beautiful houses for wealthy families while he lived in a tiny rented room above a bakery. The room was so small that he could touch both walls when he stretched out his arms. But William never complained. He saved every penny he could. He used to say that hard work was like planting seeds. You might not see the results right away, but something good would grow if you kept watering it with effort and hope. After 10 years of saving, William had enough money to bring his sweetheart Mary to England. They got married in a simple ceremony at the local church. Mary wore a beautiful gold and silk dress that she had saved for a month to buy. Emma called her uncle. James next. He was her mother's older brother and remembered many stories about great-grandmother Mary. His voice filled with warmth when Emma mentioned the gold and silk fabric. That dress was Mary's pride and joy. She only had one nice dress, but she treated it like it was made for a queen. Every Sunday she would put it on for church. She would brush it carefully and make sure every button was perfect. James told Emma that Mary believed looking your best was important, even when times were hard. She said it was a way of showing respect for yourself and for God. Other women in the neighborhood had many dresses, but none of them looked as elegant as Mary in her gold and silk. She taught all of us that being poor does not mean you cannot have dignity. She showed us that taking care of yourself and your appearance was not vanity. It was self-respect. The most touching story came when Emma asked about the cream-colored cotton pieces. Rose's voice became very quiet, almost like she was sharing a secret. Those pieces came from flour sacks, dear. During the hardest times, when your great-great-grandmother Alice was raising for children alone, money was very tight, but Alice was clever and creative. In those days, flour came in large cloths. Most people would throw the sacks away after using the flour, but Alice would save them. She would wash them carefully and bleach them until they were clean and white. Then she would use the soft cotton fabric to make clothes for her children. Alice would spend hours making sure those flour sack clothes looked as nice as store-bought. Once, she would add little touches like embroidered flowers or pretty buttons she found. Her children never felt ashamed of their clothes because Alice made them with so much love and care. Rose explained. Ned, that Alice had a special gift. She could look at something that other people thought was worthless and see its potential. She found beauty in simple things and taught her children to do the same. That evening, Emma spread the quilt out on her living room floor. She looked at it with completely new eyes. This was not just a pretty blanket. This was a map of her family's journey. Each piece of fabric represented someone who had faced difficult times and found a way to keep going. The blue denim reminded her that hard work and patience could build something lasting. The golden silk showed her that dignity and self-respect were always possible, no matter what your circumstances. The cream cotton taught her that beautiful things could be created from what others might throw away. Emma sat on the floor next to the quilt for a long time. She thought about her own situation. Yes, she had lost her job. Yes, she felt scared about the future. But she came from a family of people who knew how to turn difficulties into opportunities. That night, she made an important decision. She would start her own design business. She would help small local shops create beautiful signs and advertisements that they could afford. Just like her great-great-grandmother Alice, She would take things that others might overlook and help them become something special. Emma smiled as she folded the quilt carefully. She finally understood what her grandmother meant about knowing when the right time would come. The time was now. The first months of Emma's new business were much harder than she had imagined. She had been so excited and hopeful when she made the decision to start her own design company. She thought clients would be calling her every day. She thought her ideas would be welcomed with open arms. But reality was very different. Emma spent hours each day calling local shops and restaurants. She would explain her services and ask if they needed help with their signs or advertisements. Most of the time, people would politely say no thank you. Some would hang up the phone without even listening to her full explanation. Others would ask her to send them information. But then she would never hear from them again. There were whole weeks when her phone did not ring once with a potential client. Emma would sit at her small desk in her flat, staring at her computer screen, wondering what she was doing wrong. She had created beautiful sample designs. She had made her prices very reasonable. But still, the work was not coming. The worst moments were when she would spend days preparing a proposal for a client, only to receive an email saying they had decided to go with someone else. Each rejection felt like a personal failure. Emma would read the emails over and over, trying to understand what she could have done differently. During these difficult times, Emma developed a habit that brought her comfort. She would take her grandmother's quilt from her bedroom and wrap it round her shoulders. She would sit in a living room chair and run her fingers along the careful stitches. The fabric felt soft and warm against her skin. Emma would think about the stories her Aunt Rose and Uncle James had told her. She would remember William working construction from dawn until dark, never giving up on his dream of bringing Mary to England. She would think about Mary wearing her one golden silk dress with such pride and dignity. Most of all, she would remember Alice, turning flour sacks into beautiful clothes for her children. If they could do it, I can do it too, Emma would whisper to herself while holding the quilt. These people had faced much bigger challenges than a slow business start. They had dealt with poverty, immigration, and raising children alone. Her problems seemed smaller when she thought about their struggles. One particularly difficult evening in March, Emma received the worst news yet. She had been working for 2 weeks on a proposal for the largest restaurant in her town. The owner had seemed very interested in her ideas. Emma had created 3 different design options for their new menu and storefront sign. She had spent her own money getting the designs professionally printed to show how good they would look. That afternoon, the restaurant owner called to tell her they had decided to hire a big advertising company from London instead. Emma hung up the phone and felt like crying. This would have been her biggest client yet. The money would have helped her pay rent for the next 3 months. Emma went to get her grandmother's quilt. But as she picked it up, she noticed something wrong. There were some loose threads on one corner where the binding was coming away from the main fabric. Her heart sank. The quilt was damaged, and it was the most precious thing she owned. Emma's first thought was to take the quilt to a professional repair shop. But then she stopped herself. Why should she pay someone else to fix something so personal and important? Her grandmother had made this quilt with her own hands. Maybe Emma could learn to repair it herself. The next morning, Emma went to the local craft shop. She bought quilting thread, needles, and a book about basic quilting repairs. The shop owner, an elderly woman named Mrs. Peterson, was very helpful. She showed Emma how to match thread colors and explained the different types of stitches used in quilting. That evening, Emma spread the quilt carefully on her dining table. She studied the loose threads and compared them to the pictures in her book. Very slowly and carefully, she began to mend the damaged area. The work required patience and concentration. Each stitch had to be small and even, just like the original. Once her grandmother had made daughters Emma worked, something strange and wonderful happened. She felt her grandmother's presence in the room with her. It was not scary or unusual. It felt warm and comforting, like having a kind teacher sitting beside her. Emma found herself talking quietly to her grandmother as she stitched. "I understand now, Grandma," she whispered while threading her needle. "You knew I would need to feel connected to something bigger than my problems. This quilt is not just a blanket. It is a reminder that I come from strong people." The mending took Emma 3 hours, but she enjoyed every minute of it. When she finished, the repair was nearly invisible. The quilt looked as beautiful as ever, but more importantly, Emma felt different inside. She felt calmer and more confident about her future. Over the next few weeks, something began to change. Word about Emma's business started to spread round town. The bakery on High Street called and asked her to design a new sign for their front window. When she finished it, the baker was so pleased that he told all his customers about Emma's work. Soon after, the bookshop owner asked Emma to help create a new window display. Emma designed beautiful posters featuring the shop's best books. The display was so attractive that more people began stopping to look in the windows. Sales increased, and the bookshop owner was thrilled. The flower shop was Emma's next client. She created elegant business cards and a lovely sign for their front door. When the shop owner saw Emma's designs, she actually hugged her with joy. The cards were exactly what she had been hoping for but could never afford from expensive design. Company's daughters Emma's business grew. She realized something important. Success was not just about making money. It was about creating something that brought happiness to other people. Her grandmother had done the same thing with the quilt. She had taken simple pieces of fabric and transformed them into something that would bring comfort and joy to Emma many years later. Each time Emma finished a project for a client, she felt the same satisfaction she had felt when mending the quilt. She was taking something ordinary and making it special. She was helping small businesses look professional and attractive. Most importantly, she was carrying on the family tradition of finding beauty in simple things and creating something meaningful with her own hands. 2 years had passed since Emma found her grandmother's quilt in the dusty attic. Her life had changed completely during that time. Her design business was now successful and busy. She had regular clients who trusted her work and recommended her to their friends. Emma had moved from her small flat to a lovely cottage with a garden and plenty of space for her home office. But the most important change was not about money or business success. Emma had learned to see life differently. She had learned to see beauty in ordinary things, just like her grandmother Margaret had done with quilting. When Emma looked at a simple flower shop, she could imagine how beautiful it would look with the right sign. When she met a small business owner who was struggling, she could see the potential for growth and success. Emma had discovered that life was like quilting. It was about taking scattered pieces and bringing them together to create something beautiful and meaningful. Her business was successful because she helped people see the beauty in their own dreams and ideas. The best news of all came on a bright spring morning in April. Emma woke up feeling different. She had been married to her husband David for 8 months now, and they had been hoping to start a family. That morning, Emma took a pregnancy test and saw the wonderful result she had been waiting for. She was going to have a baby. Emma called David at work right away. He was so excited that he left his office immediately and came home to celebrate with her. They spent the whole day talking about their future child and making plans for the nursery. Emma felt happier than she had ever felt before. That afternoon, Emma knew exactly what she wanted to do. She walked to the fabric shop on the high street where she had bought her quilting supplies 2 years ago. Mrs. Peterson, the shop owner, had become a good friend. She had taught Emma many quilting techniques and always had time to answer questions. "I need fabric for a very special quilt," Emma told Mrs. Peterson with a big smile. She explained about the baby, and Mrs. Peterson clapped her hands with joy. Emma spent an hour choosing the perfect fabrics for a baby's quilt. She selected soft blues and greens, warm yellows, and gentle cream colors. But the most important pieces were the special fabrics she brought from home. Emma included a piece from her university graduation dress. She remembered how proud she had felt walking across the stage to receive her degree. She wanted her child to know that education was important and that dreams could come true with hard work. She cut a small square from her wedding dress. The ivory silk was beautiful and would remind her child that love was the foundation of their family. Emma smiled as she remembered her wedding day 6 months ago. It had been a small ceremony in the local church, with only family and close friends present. The most meaningful piece came from the blue shirt Emma had worn on the day she signed her biggest business contract. It was with a chain of restaurants that wanted her to design all their menus and advertising materials. That contract had made her business truly successful. She wanted her child to know that taking risks and following your dreams was worth it. When Emma returned home, she found her mother waiting in the sitting room. Her mother had brought a special gift, Margaret's old rocking chair. The wooden chair was beautifully carved and had been in the family for generations. Mother always said this chair would be passed down to the next generation. Her mother explained with tears in her eyes. She would sit in this chair every evening, working on your quilt. Now it is time for you to use it. Emma felt overwhelmed with emotion as she sat in her grandmother's chair for the first time. It felt familiar and comfortable, as if it had been waiting for her all these years. The evening light coming through the window was perfect for sewing. That night, Emma began working on her baby's quilt. She used the same techniques her grandmother had used, making small, careful stitches by hand. Each stitch was made with love and hope for the future. As she worked, Emma felt connected to all the women in her family who had come before her. She could almost feel her grandmother's presence in the room, guiding her hands and teaching her. She thought about great-grandmother Mary, who had taught her children about dignity and self-respect. She remembered great-great-grandmother Alice, who had found beauty in flour sacks and created wonderful clothes for her children. Emma decided to write a letter to her unborn child. Just as her grandmother had done for her, she took out her best writing paper and began. "My precious baby, I am writing this letter while you are still growing safely inside me. I do not know if you will be a boy or a girl. I do not know what you will look like or what your interests will be, but I know some important things about you already." Emma continued writing. "You will be strong because you come from a family of strong people. Your great-great-great-grandfather William came to this country with nothing and built a good life through hard work. Your great-great-great-grandmother Alice found ways to create beauty even during the hardest times." The letter went on. "This quilt I am making for you holds pieces of our family's story. Each fabric represents someone who faced challenges and kept going. When you feel lost or afraid someday, wrap yourself in this quilt and remember their courage. Remember that you carry their strength inside you." Emma worked on the quilt every evening for the next several months as her baby grew inside her. The quilt grew under her hands. She enjoyed the quiet time in the rocking chair, stitching and thinking about the future. Sometimes David would sit with her, reading or just watching her work. He loved seeing Emma so peaceful and happy. He would often put his hand on her growing belly and talk to their baby about the beautiful quilt that was being made especially for them. As Emma stitched by lamplight, she understood something profound. Love was like a continuous thread that connected all generations, The love her grandmother had sewn into her quilt was now flowing through Emma and into the quilt she was making for her own child. This pattern of love had begun long before Emma was born, and it would continue long after she was gone. The greatest gifts in life were not things you could buy in stores. They were the gifts of love, hope, and connection that were passed from one generation to the next. Some gifts waited patiently for the perfect moment to reveal their true purpose. But the gift of love never waited. It was always present, woven into the very fabric of family life. The end.